So I've never done this before the start of a show, but I'm actually going to put an actual disclaimer on this because we're going to be talking about therapy. And when I say disclaimer, I mean real disclaimer here, because normally if I ever said it before, it's more we're going to rant about shit and be politically incorrect. But this is potentially a tough topic. And as we record this is Male Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to talk about the topic of therapy. We both had experience with it, whether it was worth it. And if it is, what more people can do about it. And, this might touch on deep topics. It might not. It might stay lighthearted. But again, if anyone is going through something, our experiences might make you feel better. But if you're triggered by any of this is your chance to watch one of the other 170 plus episodes that we have talking about biceps and delts and hamstrings and glute attachments and toxins, right? Conspiracy. And aliens, which we need to do a second episode on because I saw your thing the other day. So I'm going to start with the title. In your opinion, is therapy worth it?
So from my experience, 100%.
Okay.
So our industry is not completely essential, right? People can get phenomenal results in their own life with their health and their fitness without using a personal trainer. Of course they can. But we know that having a personal trainer accelerates your chance of success, as long as you've got a good one. When someone said to me that therapy is like having a personal trainer for your brain, that's when I was sold on it. And I'd already been seeing my therapist for some time when someone said that sentence. I can't remember who for the life of me. Might have even been Rogan or Chris Williamson. I'd been seeing one for a while, but I had a very specific reason to be going to see one. And I felt no other choice, no other option was going to help me, so I did that. But then after a while, I'm start questioning, do I need this anymore? What am I getting from it? Is it helping? Is it hindering? Is it holding me back? But when I heard that sentence, it's like having a personal trainer for your brain. Because once we get clients that have succeeded and hit their goal, well, what's next? You don't just say, okay, see ya, you lost 20 kilos, bye. It's, well, what's next? What else can we help you with? Like this is a lifestyle habit. It doesn't mean you need a PT or a therapist for your entire fucking life. But it helped me then look at it in a different way of, okay, this is actually helping me deal with more than just the one situation that happened in my life, which for reference for anyone listening was my divorce. And it helped me then delve deeper out of that situation once we got more of a handle on it to look at other areas of my life where I'm exhibiting negative habits, where I'm getting stressed, where I'm getting more depressed over things, where I'm holding myself back. Without that therapy, I'd be a lot worse off than I am in terms of every situation. Like I would be handling a hell of a lot less than I currently can now. So for me, 100% worth it.
I think the personal trainer for your brain is a really interesting analogy in both ways, though, because I think you're looking at this from the angle of it'll speed up that process compared to trying to figure it out yourself, which I would agree with. But I would also think personal trainer is a really good analogy to almost calm people down thinking it's going to be the miracle fix. Because the thing about, I was sitting there, I almost disagree with that point about personal training for your mind, because I thought the thing with therapy, if you look at psilocybin or ayahuasca or these things that make massive rapid changes very, very fast, and I go, well, that's the speed. Like, therapy is such a slow process. I remember when I did my first bout of real therapy, and I had bits and bobs beforehand, but the first real consistent bout, and it was to work on a few burnout issues, few issues at like previous workplace issues, which I'm just going to leave it at that. And I remember walking through Hong Kong just the week before my last session and just going, I'm a totally different person than I was 6 months ago. But I didn't notice it. In the same way that at least if you're doing 6 months of personal training, you'll see little things along the way. And I'm sure maybe this is different for everybody, but I didn't notice therapy was working until I looked back upon reflection, because it's such a gradual change in perspective that you don't even notice it's happening. But I think that's the same as that the personal trainer analogy, because you could take Ozempic, and that's like taking ayahuasca, and lose weight super quickly. Or you could fumble about on your own. This is a slow process. This is a gradual process. You have to trust it. But at the same time, unless you're willing to do something scary, it's not. It's way quicker than the alternative.
Yeah, and to beat you said there is no miracle cure. There is no miracle fix. Like the Ozempic doesn't necessarily breed good habits that are going to last you a lifetime when you come off the Ozempic. And there's potential other issues. Same with psychedelics as well. Like it's not a one size fits all cure. There are people that have lost their fucking mind. There are people that have gone to do ayahuasca as part of their ego death, and then suddenly that becomes their new identity and therefore their new ego of doing it. And we know better than you do because we're enlightened. Because I speak to the little elves in the 8th dimension. Which is cool, which I'm jealous of.
You'd be less jealous when you know how much they vomit and shit themselves, though, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's what the ego death really is. It's okay. I've spoken to God, but I'm covered in my own shit. This isn't. This is humbling. This is a humbling experience.
I'm humble as hell after that. Yeah,
that's where it comes from. But it's. If you think about this, we are good personal trainers. Are not a one-size-fits-all plan, and it's just a blueprint, and you follow this to the fucking letter, and you'll be successful. A lot of our clients still make mistakes, right? And we allow them to make mistakes because that's how they learn. They can't learn from us just barking orders at them. They learn from their mistakes. We can help them understand whether it was genuinely a mistake or not, how you can come back from it, and how you can stop that happening again. For me, that's where the therapist becomes like the PT. My therapist has never told me what not to do, but has helped me learn from and deal with the mistakes I've made. And sometimes that's between sessions. Sometimes it's like, we said we weren't going to do this 2 weeks ago. Oh, shit, I've done it again. Okay, so now let's look a little bit deeper. How can we... I said I wasn't going to weekend binge anymore, and I hate my scale weight going up on a Monday morning. Okay, so let's look at what's causing that weekend binge to happen. Or what else is missing? It's having someone... It's just having someone in your back pocket that can help you compartmentalize your thoughts, have a non-biased look at what's going on outside of where all your energy and your focus is going on in this crazy world where we've got however many thousands of thoughts per second or whatever the fuck it is, or per minute. It's hard doing stuff on your own. Of course it's hard doing stuff on your own. So that's why if it's something you've genuinely considered, whether you've heard horror stories or not, because there's going to be good ones, there's going to be bad ones, same as PT, same as lawyers, same as everything. It's definitely worth exploring for most people, especially if you notice you can't escape the past, or there's habits, negative behaviors, emotions, feelings that you just can't give up.
Yeah.
Then I would go.
You obviously, like, how old were you when you started that bout?
Joe, I had my first round of therapy when I was 21. I got put on antidepressants and was given 6 sessions of therapy that I ended up buying more of. But I'll be honest, bless her, lovely lady, but she wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I then learned later down the line that I needed someone that was a bit more. Sometimes I just need to be told, Rob, you're being a dick. Why the fuck are you doing that? I don't need too softly, right? My last one, she was, so what are we talking? 2.5, 3, flipping hell, man, time flies. We're talking 2020. Yeah, 2020. Fuck, that's crazy. 2020, I went with this one. And she was proper hardcore, like proper hardcore. So sometimes didn't even need to say anything. Sometimes just gave me the look, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah." So I'd say this last bout, we kind of stopped in February, so that was just about the 4-year mark, I think.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because it shows how personally involved the situation needs to be. Because like I a little bit. I don't want someone that just like is my cheerleader. But at the same time, if someone was too harsh, I would feel judged. Like I'll give an example here. And again, I'm not. It's just a style. As of recording this, I'm looking like I'm about to go through a divorce, and in the early stages after my wife walked out, I went to this therapist when I didn't know what was going on. So I was still unsure of what this walkout. I wasn't sure whether it was something with her health or something I'd done or whatever else. And I went and spoke to this therapist, and it was very Like, you know, when you get a therapist in the movie and they're always looking down the nose at you a little bit and it's just very stern. And I was just like, if I come back, when I found out what happened, is like, if I come back and tell this story, I'm just going to feel such like a child on the corner, just ashamed, like, you know, want to hang my head in shame sort of thing. And I was like, I couldn't do it. You know, because a lot of mine annual audience is men. And a lot of them may think they can tough out their problems themselves, and because I think there's still this thing as a, I think, and you know, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, but I still think there's this thing with men where we're all talking about men's mental health now. Lots of people are talking about it, and the answer is always men need to talk more. And my argument is that you shouldn't be asking the person who is struggling to be the one responsible for talking. Especially in a world where, and people talk about like men don't talk enough, and this is a problem with men, which again, no one solves the problem by telling them they're the problem, right? That's never fixed anything. So I think this situation here, when men are told to talk more, and more often than not, when they talk, they get slammed, or when they talk, they get brushed aside, or when they talk, it's just like, oh, that's really sad, that must be really hard, and one conversation, and they just leave you to it. You know, whereas if a girl talks to her girlfriends, they'll be checking up on them 2-3 times a week. They'll be making sure everything's okay. You know, even in my situation now, I have a lot of people that I've been really grateful that have looked out for me. But I take note of the people that check in again.
Yeah.
And it's not because, again, I appreciate people have got their own busy stuff, but it's just that mentality of it, that it's not reliant on me. People are there if I do it, but people who are struggling often don't. So like I suppose the question I'm getting to is, obviously you mentioned starting, I'm not sure it's your first or your second bout of therapy because of your divorce. And again, feel free if you say what you're comfortable saying. But a lot of people would have just muscled out the divorce on their own. You would have gone to a bar, picked up a girl, or just muscled through, focused on the work, and found another outlet. What made you choose therapy?
Multiple reasons. One, I'll quickly divert. When my coaching, I thought I would help divorced men try and get their shit together, get a handle on their fitness, kind of realize that life's not, you know, as bitter and jaded as we're all making out to be. I joined every divorced men's Facebook, Reddit group, forum you could possibly think of. And didn't even pitch my services, just put things in there. Hey guys, here's what's helping me. If nothing else, let's focus on your fitness and your health, because without that, what have you actually got? And I think I lasted 3 months before I decided this is not the group of people to pitch to even try and help, because it was a large percentage of guys angry, bitter, guys that are still moaning about their divorce from 10 years ago, guys that are still like, oh, it's all right for her doing this, and I'm still down here like 10, 15 years later. I'm like, what have you been doing with your time, bro? For me, they're the people that try and do it all on their flipping own.
Yeah.
Because no one has a clue. There's no blueprint how to deal with this stuff. Okay, we've kind of got a blueprint how to deal with it from a legal perspective, but that's it. From an emotional side, everyone's different. Everyone reacts different. Everyone gets hurt different ways. Everyone handles stress. Everyone looks to the future, the present, the past differently. So there is no right way to handle this. So just having that person there, that extra person there that, okay, you're paying, but they're not biased. They still have your best interest at heart, as long as they're decent, and you can hopefully get a vibe for who's good for you or not. What made me chose one? This sounds so fucking childish. I always had the idea of having one because of Tony Soprano. Greatest TV show ever fucking made. I always thought, when I'm older, that's going to be me. I'm going to have a psychologist that I go and see. I don't know why, but I just thought that's what you do as a grown up.
But it's great that there are messages and role models with this, right? I was watching an episode of Scrubs where Dr. Cox was seeing a therapist,
man.
and like these things, it's good. These things do actually normalize it. Like, these are people who are strong and assertive and cool, and like, do you still think in today's world where we're now speaking about this stuff more, and everyone apparently has ADHD every time they get a bit distracted, and it's almost cool to have a mental health issue now compared to 5 years ago where people would have hidden it? Do you think there's still a stigma around therapy, or do you think that's long gone?
There definitely is, and I think things like this help. Do you know what's going to have massively helped recently in the last week? Is Simon Cowell's appearance on Diary of a CEO, which was a phenomenal episode.
Really? Okay, I've not watched
And
it.
he talks about his therapy that he's been having. Oh my God. And he explains it so beautifully. Like he says, there's only so much you can handle yourself. Your brain does all these weird things. It reacts to situations in ways we don't necessarily understand, or other parts of our brain don't understand. So there's people out there that are qualified to help. They don't tell you what to do. They don't try and fix the problem for you, but they help you learn how to deal with what's going on in your brain. They have understanding of why you're reacting this way. He explained, like, everyone go listen to that episode. It's really, really good. Really interested about the music industry as well. I think hopefully that will help, because the bigger the character that's talking about doing these things, the more chance other people have got of doing it themselves. And the stigma comes from not things being hippie and woo woo, because that's a separate side of things that we're never going to do, hopefully. But the stigma comes from it's perceived as a sign of weakness. You can't deal with stuff on yourself. You've got to go talk about it. You've got to go do talk therapy with a highly likely a woman. It's such a stupid stigma, because if anything, it makes you stronger, because you're learning how to deal with stuff. The people that can't deal with things and try to handle it on their own, and really can't handle it on their own, they become weak. And what happens when you are genuinely weak? You cash out. Yeah. Because that's the weakest you could ever possibly be, where you see no future, no happiness, you feel like a burden. That's weakness. Talking to someone about your issues is not a weakness. But as we said at the start, it's also not a one-size-fits-all cure. You can't then rely on your therapy. Your therapy can't become your new identity or your crutch, where you go every week, every 2 weeks, and you just talk about your problems and then do absolutely nothing else. Or continue to talk about that one situation in the past. And I won't get into it now. We're obviously probably going to talk about some of the negatives or drawbacks of therapy at some point. But that could be the biggest thing, is not using it as a tool. Same as going to the gym. So many polarities between the two. Like, same as going to the gym, going to the group class, doing the exact same weight every single week, going straight down to Costa, having a massive slice of cake with your coffee, or your milky fucking milkshake sugar coffee, and never losing any weight and wondering why. So you go to an extra HIIT class on top of that, and then you do yoga and Pilates on top of that as well, without addressing the root fucking cause of what's actually going on. Yeah. It just becomes another badge, you know?
Because this is a heavy episode, just spurred off something you said, I'm going to bring a brief, completely off-topic interlude that's going to boggle your brain about health and fitness. That's something that I thought about when I was on RTS the other day, right? So, again, we're not even going to discuss this, because I don't want to change the topic of the conversation, but just a brief, like, if you need a breather, if you need to, like, be able to take a bit from the therapy stuff. So, everyone talks about progressive overload, right, in terms of getting bigger, and that we have to lift heavier weights. But what we know that mechanical tension comes down to normally proximity to failure, right? So it's creating more torque on a certain muscle. When a muscle gets bigger, it creates a bigger anatomical pulley. So if I have a bigger chest that's out here, I have a bigger lever. The hinges are further away from the door handle to move the arm across. So does being stronger actually make us bigger, or is being bigger what makes us stronger? And actually, strength has nothing to do with hypertrophy. It's just the expression of strength comes as a byproduct.
Yeah.
I just want to leave that in your head whilst we talk about therapy. You need to be like, because I said this to a friend of mine the other day, and he was like, "You've literally just changed my world." but going on to this this stigma thing, like, I pulled up a few stats with this, right? And like, men account for 75 to 80% of the deaths from suicide globally. 12 men in the UK take their lives every single day. In 2019, 1 in every 8 people have a mental health issue, which is around 970 million. And remember, this is 2019. This is pre-pandemic, which is that those numbers have obviously dramatically increased. 280 million people worldwide suffer with depression. And I think a lot of the reasons why men in particular, but I think everybody, maybe don't seek out therapy is less the stigma that it's woo-woo or chatting about my problems, but more that in this social media age, we compare our problems to problems of other people. And like, there are things in my life that would floor me that you'd be like, fine, brush it off, and vice versa. And I think, people go, well, yeah, I'm going through a bad breakup, but look, there are people whose spouses have died. like for the sake of I'm going through a divorce. Right? Shout out to Ali, James Smith and Darren's friend, whose fiance committed suicide. Tragic, awful, and the stuff he's doing. The reason why I'm shouting him out, like the fact that he's talking through this, he's helping people with their mental health. He's running London to Brighton to raise money for mental health charities. Like, this guy is so inspirational. It's unbelievable. I could have easily gone, yeah, okay, I'm going through divorce. I may never see my wife again after that, but she's still here. And I could have easily gone, why do I need therapy? It's not exactly like anyone's died, or, what do I have the right to be worried about money? I'm not on the street. And I think this is the reason what people back. And it's like, stress is relative. Stress is relative to your baseline. Anxiety is relevant to your baseline. This is the reason why this is why it's important to see people like Simon Cowell talk about this, because a person on the surface looks like he would have everything: money, fame, popularity. He's really skilled in his career. Like, he knows what he's doing, and he has these issues, which makes you think that my issues maybe are worthy of having these conversations. And I think another thing that really important to say there is like being alone with nowhere to go is more a sign of weakness. But I also think, maybe it's not therapy. Maybe it's just being self-aware enough of what I do that I'm searching these things. Like, fuck it, I'll say it. There was a moment a couple of weeks ago where I understood for the first time why people commit suicide. And I think, if you ever listen to like Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell and even just speaking to people with various mental health issues. I had a real close family friend that walks for train. They're often spur of the moment things, like emotional eating, right? I always say to my students, the biggest thing to deal with emotional eating or stress or any negative self-behavior is delay. If I can delay you from grabbing the bag of donuts and and Doritos when you're stressed by reading a book, having a bath, going for a walk, the chances are that emotion that made you want to do that will start to subside. And what a lot of people do is they act on impulse. And they're in this position where everything's piling up on them and they don't see a way out. And I never really understood suicide until a couple of weeks ago, when I had the point where I had 2-3 client drop-offs. My business was in a drought, and thankfully that's taken a good big upshift recently. But so my business is falling apart around me. I moved to a place which for my wife's work, and I don't really have any friends here that if I'm struggling, I can go for a beer with. I can go into London and see you and Tim and a few other people, and that's relatively close. But it's not like I'm struggling now, I'm going to pop out.
Yeah, pop out.
And I was going through a particularly hard time in these proceedings, and I just felt I was in a rapid pool, and the waves were hitting me, and there was just no exit. I just felt I was getting battered from every angle, and I just went, I'm so glad that I am self-aware enough and maybe just so petrified of my own mortality that I'm not a person that's going to do anything silly here. But if I didn't have that self-awareness, I could have easily seen that go a different way. And I think, not entirely, but I think therapy has a part to play in that. Has a part to play in me being able to see the forest through the trees, be able to zoom out and be able to know everything turns around. It's probably also going through hard times. It's being fired. It's moving countries. It's doing hard shit that's been able to do this. But it's also speaking to other people who have done a lot of therapy. I had Pat Davidson on this show talk to me about depression's like going through a side of a mountain, and there's a side in shadow and there's a side in the light. And the first time you go through it, you feel like it's just never going to end. And then all of a sudden you get to the light side and you get complacent thinking, that's it, I've had this thing. And then you hit dark again. As you get to the top of the mountain, the dark sides get shorter and the light sides get shorter. And remembering things like that are probably the reason why in that moment, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that what I was feeling was like what people do when they commit suicide. But I'm so glad. And it's not saying any of those people were weak. They maybe didn't have the support network. They maybe didn't have the maybe hadn't gone for the therapy because they thought it was stigma. They may have just reacted on an impulse without being able to delay. They may have not had the hard experiences in their life. Not that I've had this hard life, because I haven't, but like things that have challenged them to know they can get through anything. But the feeling's the same. And like, I think when you look at the stats that I presented there, I think it's your problems aren't rare. And it's not that the people that have like, that grew up in poverty with diseases that have the right to feel this way. Everyone has. Your brain only knows your process. It only knows your past. So your brain doesn't know that Steve has it worse. So he's reacting to its emotional regulation system. So you can feel exactly the same level of depression as someone with a situation far worse than you, because your operating system only knows what it's done.
It's the problem. The problem isn't always the problem. It's how you react to it. Because again, I went through a divorce. I'm not getting bombed every flipping night indiscriminately and waking up and finding my house is gone and my kids are dead or anything like that. And those people that aren't committing suicide en masse, going, there's no point to life anymore. I've lost my kids, my house, everything gone. Let's end it.
That's the same. Without cutting you off there, like I don't know what the suicide rates are elsewhere, but it's growing in the West.
Yeah,
it's growing.
Definitely.
Well, we have things incredibly lucky compared to a lot of the world.
Yeah.
So it shows this the perception of it, not the action.
It's interesting, and it's all about how you react to it, and you learn how to react to these things by either going through things yourself or by being curious and learning things. Like, we've listened to people for years, we've read stuff, we've chatted with people. It's the people that go, like, my old man's very guilty of this. What is all this mental health stuff all about? Well, I don't need to work on that. And essentially, you're just cutting yourself off from the tools that could help you when shit hits the fan. And it's always going to hit the fucking fan. Of course it is. And it also shows why we should never be judgmental. Whenever my train is delayed because it says person hit by train, which 9.9 times out of 10 means someone's jumped in front of a train, because no one gets hit by a train standing on the platform, and I hear people moaning, I lose my shit. I do not hold my tongue at all. At all. Like, they think that's ruining their day. Motherfucker, I'm about to ruin your day even more, because I'm going to tear you down about what you're wearing, about how you look, about what you're saying. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to ruin your day.
Or even just making them realize that this person has family, that they can be far more ruined than yours.
Than you not going to work on the 2 days of a week where you actually have to go into the office because everyone works from home now. You lazy fucking prick.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I'm
anyway.
Well, as I said, I had a very, 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 very close family friend of mine jump in front of a train. So I will never have that ethos.
You never know what's going on in someone else's head unless they're telling you. And this is why we need to not obviously just check up on each other, but be fucking patient as well, and a little bit more empathetic, that everyone is struggling. Everyone's struggling. The day I went to commit suicide myself, I had clients that day. I had like 6 clients that never would have guessed anything was out of the ordinary. I had colleagues that we were mucking around like normal, making each other laugh. I then had a long period of hours completely on my own. Chester Bennington, video footage of him laughing with his family, wife and kids, the night before he killed himself.
Yeah.
There's so many. Again, the Robin Williams one's a bit tricky, because obviously if there was this brain condition or whatever, whoever would have thought that the funniest guy on the planet was going to end up hanging himself? No one would have flipping thought that.
One of my PE teachers, I remember when I was at school, I was walking in, and the rumours had started coming out. And you're a kid, you don't really know this emotional sort of empathy really to the same degree. I was in secondary school, but I was still young. And we'd heard that, like, you've heard a teacher had died. And one way to work out who on earth could it have been? And we found out it was our head of PE. Just like, well, I don't know the whole story. I think he had some sort of diagnosis which fueled this. But my tutor was in group leader was in the PE department. And, she was breaking down in tears, and I'm just like, you would have never have known. And this is the thing. We cannot wait for them to speak. I hate this rhetoric of not always, but usually women, of well, we're here to support men, so men talk. Ugh. Like, no. If this was the other way around, if there was a massive female mental health epidemic, we would be changing policies. We would be changing society. We would make it easier for them to get help. Talking is, of course, important. But if you're relying on them, it's almost like saying, if you don't want to commit suicide, it's your responsibility, which, of course, everything is. But we need to help. We aren't helping by saying, we aren't helping by someone that's already feeling bad, turning it back on them and going, solve. And I also think as well, like, patience, you said patience there, which I think is a glorious word when it comes to this, right? Because every one of us will go through something in our lives. Maybe you won't, maybe some of you are lucky, but I reckon 90% of us will go through something in our lives that will floor us. And in those moments, there's very little else you can think about, right? You've been through a divorce. I'm going through a divorce right now. You can probably appreciate that. You can just try and distract me, but it ain't happening. I was at a course last 2-3 day course. It's a great course. Shout out to Integra, Muckle, and RTS, brilliant. But I got to the end of the afternoon, and I was just so like, I was the second half of the day, and I was just like, I can't think. My brain's gone. And it wasn't just a natural, oh, we're talking about some deep exercise mechanics. It was, I struggled to pretend that I'm okay with a group, because having a one-on-one conversation like we are now, like, I don't mind having that conversation, talking about what's going on. But you know what wants to be that person in the group that brings the group down, going, are you okay? No, let me tell you why I'm sad. And so I'm exhausted trying to be sociable. I'm exhausted trying to act how I did 3 weeks ago, because I remember what it was like to feel happy. It's not a current. And so I think sometimes everyone needs to talk, but it's a minefield of who you talk to is actually going to be beneficial for you, because everyone's there the first time. Everyone who says, oh, if you want to talk, it's the common line, right? If you want to talk, I'm here. But I would say 80% of those people, if you play that card a few times, that you're quickly going to become the person who talks to. God, fucking hell, man, Simon's talking about this again. And I'm just like, can you imagine that? Like, anyone that came to me saying they were going through a bereavement or a divorce or anything, right? I'm just really struggling. Business is falling to bits. I can't imagine, like, considering them the grumpy person. You forget the person they've been for 10 years because, oh God, they're going through this again, aren't they? And I was like, that's the ethos of men talking. And I don't know, maybe it's for women too, but certainly for men, that people just kind of, they'll happily talk to you once, maybe twice. And then after that, you become a burden by doing it.
Yeah.
Very few things are solved in that 2-week period where you talk twice.
Yeah. They want you to talk. Happy to talk anytime. Just give us a shout, whatever. But they don't want that to be a consistent, permanent fixture, or you to keep talking about the same thing. And within reason,
their mental well-being. You know, it's an ego thing. I want to show that I'm the good friend that talks, rather than actually taking the ego aside and going, what do you need? I'm here.
Yeah. And we get that little dopamine hit from being the person that helps and whatever. I do see a fair amount of, when someone has killed himself, either a post or a video or something from someone else that knew them well saying, and more often than not, it's a man that's topped himself, of course. Guys, you need to talk. But when I was at my lowest, the last thing I wanted to fucking do was tell anyone about it. Last thing I wanted to do was talk about it. All I could do was think about it. But you create scenarios in your head that you take on as truth, and you can't see a way out. I didn't see talking as the way that would help, which creates two scenarios. One where talking may have helped, because at least it could have flagged up I was struggling. It could have got the help I needed. Sure, talking would have helped in that respect. But at the same time, talking wouldn't have fucking helped me. And it wouldn't have helped me because I didn't have the tools to deal with what was ailing me. I needed those. That's what got me through it. Not just the talking. Going and seeing a therapist wasn't just because of talking about my problems made it easier because I'm saying them rather than keeping them in my head. It's because I started building up the fucking toolbox. of how I deal with these negative things, of how I deal with these scenarios, change my thoughts, change my beliefs. So talking can help, of course, flipping can, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not.
Talking can help, but
Can help.
it's not even that it does help. Like I think yes, if someone said to me, are you saying that men should? No, of course. But it takes a certain kind of man to be willing to talk when they're struggling, right? And I'm not saying this is better or worse. It's just there's different mentalities, right? I'm quite lucky in a way. I experience more of the people who I'm here to talk. Once you talk once, then I'm kind of bored of it now. More than I do the lack of talking, right? Although in that moment when I was describing to you, I was too encapsulated in everything that was going on and struggling to get my head above water. I don't physically think talking would have come into my brain. It's not that I didn't want to talk. I was battling so much stuff coming at all angles. Ringing a friend wasn't the thought process here. It was just trying to survive. And it's I think like talking always helps, but this case of like some people are more willing to talk, some people aren't, and you need to be that person that goes out and talks to them. And you don't need, you can't even wait for signs and symptoms. Sometimes it's just I'm going to come round, I'm going to cook you dinner. Hey, I'm going to take you to the pub, we're going out. If you want to sit in silence, that's fine. It's that person that makes that first move. You remember that advert about mental health that came out, and was it for the Samaritans with the two football fans
for Norwich?
Yeah, and then one of them looked quite sad. The other one was super energetic and happy.
Right.
And you saw where this was going. That one of them wasn't going to be there one day, and you expected it to be the guy that was not emotive, and it was the other one.
Yeah.
And like, if that's the sign that like yourself, right? You are the, I wouldn't say the comic relief, because there's the cheeky chat people that got no substance to them, but you are fun, entertaining, comical. Like you wouldn't immediately go, "Oh, Robb's struggling." So if anyone's listening to this and goes and follows Robb on Instagram, like, would you reach out to that man randomly and go, "How you doing?" Because I bet the argument is no.
Of course you wouldn't. Yeah.
Right? Because I've had this a lot recently. But you seem fine on Instagram. I'm just like
that means anything.
I run my business.
Yeah.
Instagram. What do you want? I've got 5 pages for busy professionals.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I've tried my best to be open and honest on Instagram, and again, it's a balancing act as well, because, like, you know, again, without saying too much, like, I know there are people that are close to my other half that are watching my stories, and I don't want to overstep the mark and make things worse. And at the same time, I don't want to become too good, where the narrative going back is like, Simon's fine, he doesn't give a shit. So it's like there's so much that goes into an Instagram presence that isn't even in reality. You know, I remember a mate of mine when I got fired, and didn't reach out to me for a while. And he sat down and he apologized. He was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were struggling because you wanted out of that place and you seem fine on Instagram." I'm like, I still got fired. Like, put 2 and 2 together, and it's people not wanting to take on that emotional baggage.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That's the crux of it. So I think it's like, look through your phone book and just reach out to people. Like, you might be that catalyst. And I also think as well, like, when you're looking at people, I've almost lost my train of thought. They're getting so into it, but you know, when you're looking at people that want to talk, like, even if they don't want to talk, it's like it needs to. It cannot rely on that person. They might even know they want to talk. They might feel ashamed of it. They might feel that their problems aren't worthy, like we spoke about earlier on. So it's up to us to kind of go, all right, even just be the distraction. Even just be the person that knows they're there. You know, I mean, the thing with therapy as well, though, this is where I find it a little bit harder, is, do you think therapy is generally elitist in terms of it's only for the relatively financially secure? Like, I like, put it this way, I'm doing therapy right now, and I can't really afford it. And I'm doing okay. Like, do you think there needs to be more avenues for people who are struggling?
Definitely. And don't think anyone who is contemplating that they might need this, 100% go to your doctor and push for therapy. Try not to get put straight on the pills unless you're really, really bad. I'm not a doctor. I can't say whether you need the pills or not. But you get, I think it's like 6 or 8 sessions on the NHS for free at least.
Okay.
And there's so many directories online. I forget what they're all called. There's so many of them. Chris Williamson talks about one all the time. So just find a Modern Wisdom episode, and is it BetterHelp?
Yeah, they're not too cheap either. They're slightly cheaper, but they're not super cheap.
That's an example, and then there's other literal direct. Like even if you just Google therapist near me, you'll find these directories. Ones which will tell you the price per session, and sometimes you don't need the case. I've mine for 4 years. Doesn't mean you need yours for 4 years. Yours might just be the 6 sessions where you get the couple of tools to go and deal with stuff. Yours might be you sign up for a month and then try stuff on your own, and then a year down the line you go again. There's more than one ways to do these things. And if you genuinely can't afford it, fucking hell, man, you got the internet. I get if you're listening to this and you can't afford your therapy, you're listening to this on your phone where you've got instant access to all the articles, all the podcasts, all the audio books, all the books. Mate, fucking legally download them. It's like, if you need them, let's do what it takes to get the stuff that you need. It could be honestly, I want everyone to get paid for the work they do. But even if it's like they're legally downloading a PDF of 12 rules for life or something like that, if one of those rules help you, then what you did was worth it. And then later down the line, you pay $7.99 for Jordan Peterson's book on Amazon, okay, or direct from his website. It's you've got to do what it takes. And just to divert to Jordan Peterson for a second, who described suicide as a permanent solution to temporary problems. All problems are temporary. Of course they fucking are. But you don't see that when you're in the middle of it. You just see everything crumbling around you, and you haven't got the tools or the energy or the focus to deal with it, because all your focus is on that. And the biggest issue with talk therapy is it is a lot of talking about the past, a lot of talking about the issue that's happened. And if you're constantly talking about the past, where's your focus going? Back there to something that you can't change. There has to be some present and some future focus as well. That's what gets you out. If it's constantly, and this is those stupid flipping forums I was in, everyone's stuck in the past.
We spoke about this recently on an episode where we talked about journaling, didn't we?
Yeah.
That journaling is the negative side of journaling is it keeps you in the past rather than the future. And I think even if you can't afford it, I think, there are things like even finding like Dr. Julie on Instagram, really good visual things. That just like, what's great about her stuff is that even though it's not getting you the help you need per se, she does these great visual reels. If you're not following her, go follow her, which makes you realize that you're not daft or stupid or weak for feeling a certain way. Another great person to follow is an ex-client of mine called Dr. Sarah Vora. Big social media following now. She's great. I've actually had her on the podcast. If you listen to this, you can go back and listen to that episode, and that's certainly really helpful. And you've also got things like the Samaritans. Now, the Samaritans are a little bit of a double-edged sword. When I first found out about what was happening, and I didn't know why, I rang the Samaritans at like midnight, and they are there for someone to talk to. Yeah. They're not trained therapists. They can't help. And it is to a degree sometimes a little bit like being on a HSB call center and talking about your marriage issues. But it's there. And what the great thing about the Samaritans is in those times, if you're feeling completely lost, it could just be the way out if you don't feel comfortable talking to people in your social network. What's your view on mental health medication?
Again, a double-edged sword, right? I think we're too fast to prescribe antidepressants when other things could be going on. Immediate prescription of antidepressants without hormone checks, I think, is a massive, massive mistake. And I get it, it's funding, there's all sorts of stupid fucking chaos that is not going to be sorted out anytime soon. Regardless of who gets in this year, it's not going to be fixed. Of course, it's not. I think we're way too quick to do this. The negative side of mental health medication, obviously, there's a lot of side effects, some of which include suicidal ideation, which is just nuts when you think about it, right? Absolutely moronic. Without a look at the basic health markers that could be driving these issues. Okay, I don't understand whether we have a full understanding and diagnosis of what depression actually is. I don't believe we do.
Don't. It's not. The serotonin hypothesis has been debunked a while ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not true. It just means you don't have enough genuine evidence to know that it is
right?
the case.
And again, what's causing it? It's easy to assume that depression is only linked to negative states of your life, something bad happening, and therefore you're getting depressed. And that's not the case at all. Doesn't have to be that. Nothing needs to have happened.
Like
No,
for sake of arguments, like right now, it'd be understandable for me to be feeling depressed. And then if this lingers in 5 years' time, I'm still feeling as depressed. Touch wood, that's not the case. But like, is that how this thing is? Like I just can't foresee what would take a relatively level-headed brain to that without a moment. But I have no idea. I'm speculating here. I mean, neither of us are doctors.
Yeah. I don't believe it always requires a catalyst. Like Chester Bennington, for example, I don't know what happened in
But he had, was it bipolar or paranoid schizophrenia?
Potentially. What's his name? Chris Cornell. That one hurt hard. But then there's accidental, like MJ and Prince, which technically classed as suicides. My aunt technically classed as suicide, overdosing on a pain medication, but completely accidental. It's not like she went, fuck this, and chugged them. Just, I'm in so much fucking pain, I need them again. Still hurting, need them again. Heart just gives up, right? So you can't reach that. Obviously, that's a separate thing entirely. But like, what else is linked to depression? Hormonal imbalance, low testosterone. So it doesn't necessarily require a catalyst, an event, for you to get depression and think, oh shit, I need to sort stuff out. If you've had low testosterone for a while, you're guaranteed to be pretty much in a state of depression. And that's not necessarily down to an event. There's multiple things that cause that as well, which is why I think if I was in charge and there was the fucking money, that's the biggest thing. Like health checks like genuine health checks, not just type 2 diabetes and cholesterol. Let's actually see what's going on in your fucking bodies. You've got an idea of what needs to be fixed.
And that's where medication goes both ways, though, right? Like, so I always think like we are generally. I have a slight difference in mental health medication because that's not a quick fix either.
No.
But you know, when like the fitness industry are very quick to blame doctors, like doctors overprescribe meds. And that's like, and again, I always say this, like we see our doctor once every. I'm not signed up to a doctor here yet. That sums it up.
No,
right? Most people like 5-6 years, and they see it when the lump's already grown, the foot's already gangrene. You know, the diabetes has meant that their blood sugars have been low for the last 5 years, and they're crawling across the floor. We don't see these people, so we got these people that are in a real bad state, and we've got these people that we as coaches who speak to people daily struggle to get people to adhere to training and nutrition advice. And we get these people that you probably see once every 6 years. What hope do they have? The medication is the way. It's okay. This is I'd love to pull this lever. It's not that they're not taught enough about training and nutrition, but I don't think a lot of doctors give medication because they're not taught it. I don't understand it. I think a lot of them would love to pull this lever, but I need to do what's going to be the most helpful for this person right now.
Yeah.
It is like me making a subpar leg extension or hack squat because I'm training someone at home. We all know they should sign up to a gym, but if that's what I've got to create this weird little band set up in my living room. It's the same thing. Like, look, we just got to give something that puts the fire out, and that's what medication is. And sometimes, like we when we're certainly in the fitness space in terms of mental health, we talk about, and you even mentioned it, and it's not bad advice of training, eating well, hydration, activity. All these things we all know are going to be the catalyst out of stuff. Whether it's directly because of, if you eat better, you're going to be able to have things like testosterone, B vitamins. We're going to help things like ATP production and make you feel better. And training's going to but a lot of it's mentally, I'm doing something. But I think it's a secondary thing because that maybe talking, maybe therapy, maybe antidepressants are the first thing, because you tell somebody in that mode, you tell people in that suicidal tendency to go train and eat a salad, Like, come on. And this is the counter argument I have to, the Chris Williamson and Andrew Huberman always talk about these. Does the body change the brain or the brain change the body? 99% of the time, I think the body changes the brain. You have to act a way to feeling different. Right? It's very difficult to think your way into motivation. But I think there is a point where that flips. And I think that's real when you're in a real bad place. Because like the last thing I want when I'm feeling awful is to have a chicken breast and vegetables. I want a pizza. I want a beer.
Mate.
I don't want to get up out of bed, let alone go to the gym. It's like, how do I get somebody into the place where they even contemplate doing the things? Those things that get you out of the hole. But I need to get a ladder to get even halfway up the hole.
Yeah, I through my lowest points, I carried on training, but that's because it was a consistent habit for me. Training did not make me feel better. It didn't. I was using it as like an angry. I was a UP, bruv. Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? Like, I've had bouts of struggle in my life where training has been my anchor. And if you'd have told me 6 months ago, one thing you should definitely keep doing at your low moments is training. And then this happens, and I don't work in the gym anymore.
Yeah.
And my training has been don't get wrong. Every time I've gone training, I've enjoyed it, and I've been glad I did it, and it's made me feel better. But my training has been more sporadic than it's ever been because I don't want to get out of bed, let alone go to the gym. So even someone who loves this shit, it's different. To the point where I've got that thing on my phone that my therapist ironically gave me, which is little targets for the day that I can now look at every single day. And two of them. Well, I'll read all of them actually, because it's like, so you've got the 3, 1K, and 30 days on the top. That is to remind me that no matter how overwhelmed I get maybe with business, if I can bring 3 new people into SMU, 3 new coaches, I can add 1K in revenue in whatever way, whether it's through my store, whether it's through courses, whether it's through SMU membership, which could just be one client if someone pays in full, or if in the next 30 days. So I just have that constant reminder. But then underneath this is my daily like sort of standards that we've set. 5,000 steps per day without my phone, 150 grams of protein per day, 10 outreach messages per day, and 10 press-ups. 10 press. That's it, because the barrier to entry has to be low.
Has to be. It's funny, like just going back to what we were saying, that at my lowest, I was ordering Papa John's twice a day. When I wasn't at the gym and I was at my flat share with crack addict and a witch, I would change. I would go between their chicken club one, which was just all decent chicken, bacon, whoosh, or their it was like I think they still do it. It's like a sausage, andouille sausage. Oh. Mate, it was fucking stuffed crust. I'm done.
You're sitting here probably about to tell me why this is bad, but when we click on record, I'm going to go. I'm going to order a Papa John's. That'll get me through this.
Even at my lowest, I made good choices in terms of flavour.
Good
But I was ordering Papa John's twice a day. No word of a lie. Twice a day. And the first person to ask me if I was okay was the fucking Papa John's Deliveroo boy. When he saw me twice in one day, went, "Oh, it's you again?" Yeah. And then went, "You all right?" It's like, "Yeah, man, just ain't cooked, just ain't prepped. Need something quick and easy." He's like, "Okay, take care of yourself, man." Drove off. He must see it all the fucking time, right? He must see it all the time, because when you are in a low point and you don't want to, well, I mean, half the time I weren't even eating. When I weren't eating for 2 days, I was ravenous. Didn't want to cook. Didn't want to walk down to the shop. Fuck it, Papa John's delivers that in 12 minutes, right?
I can relate to that.
Easily done. Everyone would. So many people would do it. But you must see some sights. We don't see this stuff because we're oblivious to it. We just don't look. We don't look anywhere because we're either too involved in other people's shit or we're too involved in our own shit. We don't actually see what's going on. Yeah. We can just take a little pattern interrupt like that, and it did. I took that Papa John's in, ate it, took the box to the recycling, and went, "There's 20 fucking boxes in here, bruv. What are you doing?" And I went, "Whoa, okay. Maybe I need to, there's something going on here." Looked at my bank account as well and went, "Okay. Yeah. Where's rent coming from this month? Sell the kidney or start the OnlyFans finally." It was like terrifying fucking point. And that's the stupid thing. Like, even then, I was making stupid jokes to myself. Still joking with my friends. You wouldn't have guessed. Yeah. If I had gone through with it, we'll talk about something in a second. If I had gone through with it, it would have been a classic case of I had no idea. I had no idea he was going to do that. I gave away no signs. I gave away no signal, apart from to the Papa John's delivery boy, who wouldn't have been at my funeral. Of course, he wouldn't have been at my funeral. And do you know what? I felt.
Hold on, he might have catered Papa John's.
I felt a bit of a mate. I would have, if I could have arranged my own funeral. Hell yeah, Krispy Kreme donuts and Papa John's, people. Let's eat like kings. I felt a little bit of a debt to that guy when I was still living in the same area. I saw Domino's rival brand, a Domino's guy in a fight with a cyclist, and this cyclist guy was winning and was definitely the aggressor of the fight and the reason it was happening. The last fight I got involved with, I sprinted over there, picturing that it was my mate. Like, that guy, Papa John's guy, help me! I'm coming, Domino's. I know you're a rival brand, but fucking help this guy out. Just for that reason, that's all that was going on in my head. And I felt better for it because I was helping someone else as well. That can be a thing, even at your absolute lowest. Sometimes you just need something to do. And when you've got nothing to do, you'll do nothing. You'll just think about the issue. Sometimes I did that. I reached out to other people as well. I tried to help out other people where I could. I tried not to become a self-centered, bitter, jaded prick. But that doesn't happen by default. Like, some people go down that route because they haven't got the tools. They don't know how to help, and that's why I think it's important to listen to other people's stories, listen to podcasts, and even if it's not necessarily a subject you're interested in at face value. I'm not a big fan of Simon Cowell. I don't really watch X Factor or Britain's Got Talent beyond the first ever series. He's part of that end of the music industry that I despise. It's one of the best fucking episodes of anything I've ever listened to because of how deep he goes into his own thoughts. But it's also remembering, we've talked about fix it. We've used the word fix, and it doesn't always equal there being a fix. A guy I know in Alliance, in Paul Mort's coaching group, flagged up that at the beginning of the year on the quarterly where we all meet up, the day afterwards, he had it all planned out, where he was going to do it, how he was going to do it. And on the day, you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known at all. And then he openly admitted, I think about this all the time. And it took someone else saying that for me to think that I still think about it a lot. I'm not going to do it. As far as I'm aware, I'm not going to do it. I'm not in a bad enough place for me to consider taking action on it. But I have those thoughts a lot. And what does that do? Luckily, I'm self-aware enough to think about, okay, well, now I need to find out what's going on. Now I need to figure out where's the positivity in my life. What can I do to get more of it? What's causing these thoughts? Sadly, I haven't got my therapist at the moment. That would be the perfect opportunity for me to go into this next phase of, why do I still have these thoughts? Why am I still thinking about that? Why? And it doesn't necessarily happen in like my worst moments anymore. It can just be something I consider doing. Yeah. It's so strange. And again, I don't have the answers. But who does have the answers? Psychologists, therapists, counsellors.
I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember who the therapist was, and he talked about. I don't even. There's probably an official term for it, but you know that feeling where nothing's going wrong, but you have an impulse to do something really stupid, like jump off that bridge, jump off that building, or jump from that train, right? And some people who don't have. I remember after Chester Bennington died, I was reading this article about someone with bipolar, and she was speculating how someone, like I said, was laughing with their family. Yeah. Obviously, we'll never know.
We never know.
You know, maybe he was going through a hard time. We didn't even know about it. But she was like, I had this beach holiday home, and my book had just hit New York bestseller. Everything was good. I was writing my next book, and I was just listening. The birds were chirping, and I could see the sea, and I thought, oh, this is amazing. And then because she's got bipolar, one of the things she writes about, she was self-aware enough, but she had this thought come into her head, just jump out the window. And that ability to not do that, and some people don't. Some people might have done, and we go, oh God, I never even known. Well, maybe it wasn't even a mental health. Well, it was a mental health issue, but maybe it wasn't depression.
Yeah,
maybe it was literally just an impulse that they couldn't get over, and they did. And you know, like I'd never do it, but I get these things on the top of a building, and when I think there's partly I've had a couple of explanations for this. Partly it's the brain's curiosity, and also if people have a fear of something and a fight or flight response, sometimes the quickest solution is just to, even if it doesn't make sense, the brain should be hardwired for survival. It's almost just like if I'm in this sort of like no-win situation, that's the quickest route. And I don't. It's weird, but like it's weird how the brain will do that. Like I've certainly had that, you know. So like, what's the? And again, I don't want to say bad because there's probably logic into it. It's like when I look at a training program, it's not necessarily bad as long as there's a reason why. But what's some of the most unhelpful things you've had happen to you in therapy?
I think the biggest thing that we tried to move away from was is it a repetitive conversation? Are we talking about the exact same thing all the time? And if that is the case, why are we doing that? Are we using this therapy session as just a dopamine hit to either justify myself or get a little bit of sympathy, or like, why aren't I moving on from that particular thing? And in which case we've got work to do. It's not just that should be the thing as well, that you should be able to come out of the session with something to do, not necessarily homework, but if you are just going, and this will be the case in your first few sessions anyway, if you are going and just talking and it's just getting stuff out, like, cool, but long term, that's almost like rent a friend, really. You need to be working on something. And periods where we noticed that it weren't working, that I was doing the same destructive habits, behaviors, then something's missing. I'm either going out of that session, and what did I need that session for? And then eventually later it just became kind of a mental health checkup, and it was talking about similar things all the time, similar situations. Well, we've moved on from that. That's not relevant anymore, that sort of thing. But if you have sadly got the therapist is not right for you, don't let that put you off of ever testing it out. And you don't have to sign up to a long-term package of anyone based on one session alone. You can try different things out, like you would do different gyms, etc. I think you'll kind of get a vibe after a while. Is what is this doing for me now? Is this helping or hindering? And you should take stock of that. You should review it.
I think as well, while you shouldn't necessarily sign up to a long-term package for people, I do think you should give things more than one session. And I also think you should judge on vibe of person rather than vibe of homework. For example, there was a therapist I saw in Hong Kong for a while that all my friends now over there go and see, and they absolutely love. And I really liked the guy. And at the time, maybe I just wasn't ready for it. But I remember he was like, "You got a high vagal tone." I was just anxious, like probably ADHD. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD. But he was like, what I want you to do, 15 taps on your temples, 15 taps on your forehead, 15 taps on your cheeks, 15 taps on your chin, 15 taps on your neck. 15. I'm just like, I was like, that was my homework. I just felt that so woo-woo that I just put me off and didn't come back.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the benefits that my friends have had and gone, maybe I should have stuck that out. Maybe that drill wasn't right for me, but it doesn't mean the therapist wasn't. So I think I probably should have stuck that out a little bit longer and gotten past that initial sort of reaction thing.
But if you look at that exact method, I mean, tapping's a big thing. Was it EFT or something like that, right? And it's exactly that. And sometimes it's just the tap. Sometimes people are doing affirmations with it. I did a course of it for a week, like an online course. And after the week, I was like, I feel like I've just wasted my time. But for some people, that will work, because at that moment in time, you're counting 15 taps and your body's doing something. So therefore, your focus can't be on, oh my God, I've got bills to pay. Oh my God, but fucking this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. Your focus is on your fingers doing that thing. So if anything, it's just a 5-minute pattern break from the chaos of the rest of your life. That can stop you thinking about that thing.
Yeah.
My brother, when he was much younger, was given the option of different therapists. I don't think he took any of them in the end. One of them was an art therapy, and great artist, phenomenal artist, would have been perfect. But the art therapist was, take this bit of cloth here and feel it and feel the textures. And my mum took him straight out of there and was like, that's not right for you. That's fucking bullshit, right? If it had been actual painting or art, mate, you would have been amazing. But when you think about it again, you're taking this thing and it's not going to work for everyone. And I would have laughed in their fucking face. But it's, what's your focus doing for 5 minutes? It's feeling that thing. You're not thinking about the problem. You've shifted your brain to something else entirely. And that can be as simple as podcast, music, movie.
That's why video games work for so many people.
Video games.
ADHD, because they've got something in their hands.
Perfect.
As well.
Yeah, that's what really, when you break it down into its most simple form, and I'm sure there is other things going on in there. I'm not discounting all these types of therapies. In its most simplest form, it's distraction and direction of focus, change of direction of focus. So even something as simple as that is when someone's dieting, right? When someone's aggressively dieting, we do what we can to try and stop them thinking about food. Because if they're thinking about food 24 hours a day, something's going to give at some point, and they're making the process a hell of a lot more miserable. And then they'll start thinking about hacks and tips and tricks that aren't going to fucking work. But if you can diet aggressively whilst also focus on your food and have some fun with friends and do something positive and watch something or read something, your brain's not thinking about food anymore. It becomes a hell of a less miserable process.
Yeah.
If we can just, like, again, distraction doesn't fix the issue. But if you're constantly fixated on that issue, you're just eating brain calories that can help you do other areas of your life, and it's you just never move away from it. You just be stuck in that mindset, constantly thinking about that issue, and no problem ever got solved in the brain, which is why therapy can help. Again, it's getting it out, whether that is just verbally or onto paper or whatever the hell it is, or learning a new thing about yourself. That's been some of the biggest wins I've taken from therapy. Not just talking about the issues that have happened to me, but the traits that I've got in me that are holding me back. Recognizing those traits, because you don't recognize it. We're quick to recognize everyone else's negative traits.
Yeah.
And this was something I learned from Paul. I can't remember who he learned it from. Maybe Dr. DeMartini. That every negative trait that you despise in other people is something you are capable of because you recognize it. If you weren't capable of it, you wouldn't understand it. You wouldn't recognize it, which is why we know some people and we'll go, I don't understand how they do that, because we don't have that trait in ourselves. But the negative traits we recognize are ones we're capable of. We probably have in there at like 0.2 setting or something like that.
I remember this from I went to the Waking Up weekend, which is the original weekend that I think inspired Tony Robbins, and he did them in the US, did them in Bradford of all places. I think they did do them in London as well, but because it's a non-profit, it became too expensive.
Yeah.
But really, really good. So you start learning about the brain and the process, and they fill it with like actual actions to do that help you. I might even look at it again coming up soon, but and then it escalates over the weekend. So I'm not going to tell you how it ends. Otherwise, you go like, "Fuck that, I'm not going." But I generally recommend it for people. But like, it starts with like looking at someone in the like directly in the eyes and things like this. But one of the drills, the lunchtime drill, is that you have to go up to find somebody that you don't want to have lunch with, and you have to then go and tell them, "I want to have lunch with you." And at lunch, you've got to tell them why.
Oh,
so I went immediately to sort of like the stoner kid that was on psychedelics thinking that aliens existed. Now I would be best friends with this person, but at the time I didn't understand it. That was my insecurity. Right?
Yeah.
But I thought, I won't get many. I got 5 people.
Come on.
And I was like,
what
the fuck's wrong with me? I realized of these 5 people, one of them was just saying, "Oh well, I didn't have anyone, so I thought I'd ask you." She wasn't ready to admit what she was. She was obviously too scared with the process. Of course. But everyone was like, I was more in shape than I am now. I was coming out for a photo shoot. You know, I was loud. I appeared more confident than I was, and all of that was that. They assumed ego. They assumed confidence. They didn't like the fact that I was in shape. It was all a reflection of what they felt about themselves. So when we came back from lunch, the tutor kind of asked some of these people to share, and it was all their own insecurities sharing back at them. And so I think you're absolutely right. So I think I want to ask you finish off with asking you about some of the good things about therapy that you've taken. You've alluded to some there, but I want to ask you this sort of sidebar question. And I think it's a slight tangent, but not really. It's still in the same realm. But it's something that I think it's become very close to my heart at the moment. And are all addictions treated equally?
Ooh. I would say no. I would have to say no. I mean, granted, I don't have much experience of addiction myself. Some addictive behaviours, without a doubt, but more habitual rather than actual addiction. Okay, in my 20s, I had a very, very expensive coke habit, but I came off it quite easily. I didn't have to go to rehab or anything like that. Yeah. It was habit and necessity at the time.
Yes.
I don't have experience of that, but I know I've known many people with full-on drug addictions that don't get the help they need I know people with minor addictions that don't get the help they need. I know people that are booked into rehab not necessarily for drug addiction, but they're paying for a fucking nose to do so. I don't know if we had similar to. I'm not going to slag off the NHS. Of course, I'm not. But similar to the NHS, it's a flawed system, and the options you have if you have an addiction, I think are also flawed.
It's unless you do something that harms yourself, it's also a very expensive process to check
very
into rehab.
expensive process. Yeah, exactly.
No, I
therefore,
looked at it recently, and I'll allude to why in a second. And I'm glad I didn't now, because that would have been a huge waste of money for what I found out since. But I was in reaction mode, and like you have to be a trust fund baby to be able to afford rehab.
Near enough. Or a record label
get into
paying
real
for
addictions
it
aren't trust fund babies.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like certain albums cost millions to make, and you're like, how can an album cost millions? Okay, studio time, personnel, rehab as well. Everything goes into there. Same for movie budgets as well. All these things cover everything. We'll have to get. I say you'll have to get, because it does not need to be a three-way conversation. George Charlton, who is in Paul Mort's Alliance, he's known as the naloxone man. This is a drug that, if someone's overdosed on heroin, can bring them back. Wow. So he goes around as an ex-drug addict himself, and he's very, very careful with the labeling of these things. Hates that we call them junkies, and even that we call them addicts. And he's been through the system. He's been through the ringer. I'm not being funny, bruv. Prepare 2 hours at least for that podcast and bring tissues. It's, oh my God, what a story. And more people need to hear it. And his point came where getting addicted to drugs, self-harming, potential harm to others, that his dad wrestled him to the floor and got him committed, basically, and checked into rehab. And the exact word his old man said to him as he did this were, I can't have you kill my wife. Basically, like, he was going to self-harming himself, and he was going to kill his mum or someone else at some point. And now, been through all those, and he points out exactly where the flaws in the system are and how there needs to, not just needs to be more funding, but needs to be more education. And so he has these teams that go to homeless areas with high drug addiction, and educate them on their own bad habits, and they're not bad people. They're just people that have gone through these things, and their solution has been getting into drugs, and then they've become addicted to those drugs. And there's ways out of that path. And they're not bad members of society, and they're not the lowest rungs of society, and they're not pieces of dirt on the street. They're just genuine people that need help and need love and everything. And then helps educate them about this naloxone. I hope I'm not butchering that name. That, again, for heroin addiction, if they've overdosed it, this fucking brings them back. So if you're in a homeless little commune or a drug den or something like that, and someone's just done it, and you're the guy that's sober enough to, oh shit, you're saving someone's life, and that's someone who can then come back from the brink and fix themselves, and then go on to help other people. And this horrible, like, part of society that's just not getting fixed, not getting any better. George Charlton, people go follow him as well if you're listening to this. He's incredible. But fuck me, I don't think I've cried so much in a man's presentation in my life. It was intense. Wow. But it just really shows that we don't help addicts out. No, we cast them aside.
I think I agree. And obviously, I only have a sporadic knowledge of addiction, and obviously George would probably tell me, a much bigger, deeper story about this. But I think general, I don't want to say big addictions, because it's fair that one addiction's bigger than the others, but the ones that are more common in the public sphere, alcoholism, drug addictions. We're getting to that point where the junkie conversation is less happened. They're generally more accepted. They're not necessarily, people are justifying them, nor should they necessarily. Bad actions are bad actions, but we understand them.
Yeah.
And without going too much into my story, for a bit of time, and obviously you know it, I wondered whether I had an addiction to pornography. Now, having gone through a bit of therapy directly related to that, and gone through a lot of research, and like you with the divorced men's groups, I looked at the groups of this and I went, I don't. I don't. Like
Yeah.
I had a coping mechanism for stress that I let get
Mm.
out of hand, but it wasn't
Yeah.
an addiction per se.
Yeah.
But the one thing I found that was really common thread in these support groups, everyone looks at porn addiction as this dirty thing.
Mm. Yeah.
You sex pest. You are equivalent of a man with a trench coat with his knob out, you know, like. And I have yet to see, of the thousands of people in these support groups, the people that I have met in 12-step meetings, the people that, you know, that the questions I got on therapy forms. I've yet to meet someone yet that it was an arousal regulation issue, and it
Yeah.
was an emotional regulation issue. And I feel that people in that position don't get the help they need because they're looked down upon so heavily as this dirty sex when it isn't even anything to do with the motive to the action.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it changes from porn addiction to sex addiction. And I also think, like, we also got to think, people don't think, if I wanted to get heroin, I'd have to find a dealer, I'd have to risk getting arrested, I'd have to meet someone in a back alley, I'd have to leave my house. In my hand, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Exactly.
And we don't consider that as a
No.
problem. And that's the mental thing. Like, I reckon a lot of porn addicts would get much more sympathy if they were doing crystal meth in their kitchen
Yeah.
than they would if they were looking at pornography too much.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
sorry, but that was an eye-opening
Go on.
moment of like, I'm only looking at one thing here and I'm only getting a snapshot. And I'm like, how many other addictions are gambling addictions? Maybe is another one like this, where people just either don't consider they exist or consider you this weak, dirty junkie.
Yeah.
Whereas now, someone like a heroin addict is now this. We see them as having a problem that we need to fix. Either they do or we do. That depends on the person. But my mind was blown of the misunderstanding with this. Like, I just couldn't believe there was thousands, probably millions of people that suffer from this. And also what I also found with this as well is that how many of them, these groups and videos and things like this, they're all about religious people. They all will have the higher power and the grace of God that he will save you in your salvation. And I'm like, I find it very hard to believe that there isn't a bunch of atheists out there that struggle with porn addiction and have nowhere to turn. Because as soon as they turn, they go, well, God will forgive you. I'm like, well, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and that was when I realized, yeah, like, our mental health system is fucked because we don't even plan, we don't even try and educate to understand people on certain things. It's like not this big public sphere thing, or it's no attention whatsoever.
It's on us. Sadly, it's on us as the individual, which it kind of should be anyway. But it's on us to limit our access to things that are easy access. You go to any town, 5 pubs at least, right? So if you're an alcoholic, but there's at least one bookie, so you can go in there if you're a gambling addict. Okay, if they ban you from there because you're spending too much or losing too much, you've got however many flipping bookies online that you can now get on your phone as well. So the ease of access is instantly easy. Porn, ridiculous ease of access. Mate, that's fucking social media now as well, right? You can get your kicks off of that. It's ridiculous. In terms of drugs, obviously a little bit harder to get hold of unless you know the person. It'll be funny. One of my clients some time ago who smokes weed showed me the beautifully Canva crafted PDF that her drug dealer gives her once a month with everything on it. And I'm like, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. This is where they're going to now. They've got PDFs. So now it's not a sketch. Like, it's someone will just turn up on a Deliveroo bike type thing and deliver it outside your office or your flat or come into wherever you wanted to be. I had a previous client at UP. She was amazing, but I'm not going to say her name. Diagnosed sex addict. That's one of those addictions that people think, oh, that'd be pretty cool. Just having sex all the time. Maybe I'm just horny all flipping day. Heard the story she told me, made me feel really fucking good about my life. Because she's putting herself in intensely dangerous situations. And it's all exactly what you said. It's an emotional regulation issue. She's not a sex addict because she likes sex. She's not a sex addict because she wants to go out and sleep with as many people as she can and get a number up. She's not a sex addict because she's a quote unquote slag. She's got severe emotional gaps in her life that aren't being fixed, that she's choosing dangerous, extremely dangerous methods to soothe those emotional gaps. The story she told me horrified me. I'm amazed she was even alive. incredible. Nothing to do with going up and just shagging as many geezers as possible. But eventually we made it work with her diet, because I knew if she's seeing Dave on a Monday, he cooks salmon and eggs for breakfast. Her protein's going to be good that morning. If she sees Simon on a Thursday night, they always go out to a restaurant. Like, it became a little game between
Well,
the two.
apologise to her on my behalf then.
But I don't want to trivialise or joke about her issue too much.
No,
she was a very happy lady, but with an issue, and without her saying anything about that, you wouldn't know. I never would have assumed that in the slightest. But you're right. It is fucked. But how the fuck do we fix it? What's it actually going to take? Funding goes to more management, and without getting too right-wing, diversity, opportunity, quota
porn
managers.
And sex addiction, it takes more brave people that are willing to get
nothing.
willing to accept ridicule to be the catalyst.
Yeah, massively so.
Like, to the point where I looked at this and I went, even though I've looked at this now and upon reflection that I don't really have the problem, I still, part of me thinks at some point I will champion this.
Yeah.
With me not having the problem, maybe the perfect middle ground, because I won't get as much hate, but it might mean the person who does really struggle feels better.
Yeah.
Because I was just, my mind was blown. You're either religious or you have no help. And even when I was looking through it myself, and I was talking about what was going on with me, and I had friends, everyone I had friends, of course, very supportive, but I saw friends where I saw the initial reaction in their eyes. I saw the nose turn up, and I'm like, and I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing.
Yeah.
But
we judge. We all judge.
And then looking at it and going, just looking at it, when someone had that look in their eyes, I went, yeah, but this is so far from the truth. This is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
I've without going too much into details, I've been accused of some stuff that makes it seem like I've been judged for something. I was like, you didn't know the half of it. And it's
when it comes to that thing
at all.
When you're admitting stuff to other people and they judge you the harshest, normally that's triggered something inside them. Like, how many people are, let's use porn as the example, how many people are watching porn? Way more than we'll ever understand, because there is still a shame stigma about admitting that you even watch porn. It's the ease of access is ridiculous, right? And most guys are fucking doing it. Of course they're fucking doing it. And the people that would judge you the harshest about it, it's just, you've just highlighted something that's going on in their own life, without them recognizing that they've got the same emotional gap. There's a reason that industry exists. There's a reason with drugs, there's a chemical basis to this as well. With the other things, not so much a chemical, but the more you stay, you completely rewire your dopamine
rush society,
right?
which is part of it, right?
Yeah, you're completely changing the makeup of your brain without extra chemical enhancement there, which then it does. You're creating damage in your brain. You are. There's not enough studies on this stuff. Where's the money in studying porn addiction? There's not really, right? Where's the money in studying sex addiction? There's probably not. Where's the money in studying? Well, of course there is money in studying drug addiction, and that's a big industry that fuels itself as well. Without getting too conspiratorial, but to kind of bring it back to what we're saying, the help that's needed professionally, there's either a barrier to entry by price to get the help, or there's just one or two other paths for you to go down. Like the religious path, if that's not for you, it's not for you. Some people that helps, some people it doesn't help. I think there's a lot of people getting help from Jordan Peterson now. The more he talks about religion without them being religious themselves. And I'm not saying everyone should then just convert to a religion, not in the fucking slightest. Because again, that can be quite damaging. How many people have got severe emotional and whatever else issues from an upbringing in a strict dogmatic religion, not necessarily a cult, but that can create as many problems as it fixes. But it's the higher purpose that you should give yourself over to is the pursuit of something. So if we took Catholics and Christians and maybe not Buddhists, but I don't know too much about Muslimism, fuck's sake, Islam. I don't know too much about that, but the Quran's on my next wish list of books to read when it comes to religion. their pursuit is to go into heaven, the next life, the next world, whatever the hell it is, right? To be the final judgment, to be in heaven rather than hell. In terms of someone's pursuit of their health, in terms of someone's pursuit of their family, the upbringing of their kids, the mission that they've got that impacts the world, it's all the same thing. It's a positive future-based thing that impacts other people as well. And when we are coming from places of neglect, abuse, lack of emotions, whatever negative state you've been brought up from, where a lot of these things come from, and materialize later on in life as well, the more we fixate on that past and the less we fixate on the pursuit or giving something over to another to, again, the high power being 5 or 6 different things there, the more you're going to get stuck and stay in that loop, in that negative loop cycle. I made some posts maybe 2 years ago, and I stopped kind of doing it, where I was kind of raging against porn. Fellas, get off porn. This is how it's damaging you. Don't do this. And so many guys that I didn't know would comment saying, I don't really see an issue here. And all they've done there is wave a giant fucking flag with Pornhub on it going, I watch porn. Mm-hmm. That's all they've done there. They're unwilling to commit to the idea that this might be a negative thing. And you've got to take stock, and this is where therapy can help you do so. Got to take stock of your life where you are doing negative things that are damaging you physically, mentally, emotionally, relationships, potential for progression for work, financially, whatever way they're damaging you. You've got to take stock of your life and look at what negative things you are doing. Therapy can help you see that very quickly. Obviously, like I said at the start, psychedelics can wave that right the fact, like you've switched the TV on. It's a long list of this is the shit you're doing wrong, motherfucker. But we've got to be willing to look for that. And someone who comments on a post about this is how porn's damaging you with, I don't see any issue with porn, who also happen to be married with kids based on his Instagram, is just unwilling to admit that this is a negative thing. Like, what benefit is that actually bringing to your life? There's zero benefit to any of these things that we label as an addiction or becomes an addiction. These are non-beneficial actions, habits, behaviors based on an emotional gap that you're trying to fill, which alarm bells should be ringing that, okay, well, I'm doing something to soothe and sedate rather than fix the issue. Therapy is just one tool of many. Looking after yourself, obviously, is another tool that you don't necessarily feel of doing when you're at your lowest state. But anything you can do, mate, 5,000 steps can be a game changer, right? Compared to sitting on your sofa doing fuck all.
Well, I started with 5,000 steps yesterday, end up with 25,000 by the end of the day.
Exactly, man.
And if I didn't do that first 5, I wouldn't have done the 25. Yeah, I got halfway and went, I'm going to try and walk to Woking. And I didn't get quite as far as Woking because all the roads stopped having pavements. And I didn't fancy getting run over. But I ended up with 25K. And then I went and the idea yesterday, I'm doing these anti-reaction videos, like fighting back against them. I had one about what I love about Lauren Jumps, the skipping girl.
I don't know, but I looked at your story,
in pandemic and lockdown.
Amazing.
And she's become amazing. She just did these videos. Sweet. And I was going to have it as a lesson for coaches, like whilst all of us were trying to make subpar hypertrophy workouts with bands, she did something she could actually progress. Expectation management is key. And I thought I have to do this video while skipping, right?
Love it.
And I was a good skipper at school, and I've been every time I picked up a skipping rep since, I've been all right enough to do a reel. I couldn't get one yesterday, and I've got a feeling is I bought a rope that was just too long. I think it was a wire rope that had less control.
Yeah.
So I know a bad painter blames it, bad craftsman blames his tools, but like I can't have gotten that shit. So I think it might be the tool, but I might get another one then try again. But so just to close off on this then, if someone was considering listening to this and gone, I might consider therapy, what's the thing you'd say to them? Or what's the biggest takeaway you've had from your experiences with therapy?
I would look at it as, what do you want to achieve from this? Do you just want to go to someone and talk? I'm not saying any of these are bad, by the way, but figure out, what do you want to achieve from this? I went to my therapist because I thought, if I don't do something and there's no other way of getting help, I'm going to do something bad. So I want to go there and help figure out what the fuck's going on in my life, why I've ended up in this position, and what I need to do next.
Yeah.
That was me. I'm not trying to
Me
put
too.
words in anyone else's mouth, right? But it's what do you want to achieve from it? What do you think the benefit will be? And how can you make this work into your own life? Are you ready to commit to this? Like it, because if you really, really want to get the growth and the results from it, it is a commitment because it is a long-term process.
Mm.
It's and before anyone just listens to the first 10 minutes and goes, well, I'll just go do drugs instead. Then I don't, because you've still got to integrate what you may or may not learn from those experiences. 9 out of 10 of my mushroom experiences, basically bearing in mind I've done like 50, so you could say I've had 5 insightful experiences, and I don't know what the maths is for the rest. Were just me chatting to aliens on board a ship, or becoming a fucking pyramid and going, "This is cool," or realizing I'm a tree. You know, it's not, you're not getting lessons from it. So that's the biggest thing. What do you want to achieve from it? What do you think this is going to help you do? And if that makes you feel good, that seems like a positive thing to do, then fucking go all in. Don't go into the therapy trying to hold anything back. Don't try and hide anything. Balls out. Let's fucking go. Say everything. Because the more you hold back, the more you're trying to fix it yourself, in which case you're wasting your time, their time,
And money.
and your money.
Yeah.
And money. A lot of money. Go all out. If you're going to commit to it, let's go. All filters off. It's the most judgment-free zone I've ever been in my life. It's amazing. And it takes a couple of sessions to realise that. And the first time you openly admit your problems to someone, bear in mind a complete stranger, is a weird and brave experience to go through.
Agree.
Like hats off to anyone that does it, right? But you've got to just get it all out. Don't hold anything back.
I think the only thing I'd add to that, you know, and again, what you said, because it is quite an expensive thing. I recommend therapy for everybody for that exact judgment-free zone, and being able to have someone that can listen to you and also try and help provide solutions without telling you what to do. Right?
Yeah.
They're helping you come to a solution. But I think if you're listening to this and you've gotten this far and you're struggling, find someone, a friend, a parent, someone that you generally trust, that you can actually have that honest conversation with and let that out, because it's you thinking your problems aren't big enough. If you're thinking you've got to solve it yourself, these things are often making things worse. And this is the reason why we do have the I never even knew he was struggling conversation. Find someone, because at least if you find that right person, they'll check in on you, and you're having that moment. They'll be the Papa John's delivery guy.
Yeah, man.
You know? So for people, because you talk about this a little bit yourself, and obviously I'll start talking about my issues a lot recently. So where are people finding you?
Where I would talk about those sort of things the most is on the Fat Loss Fast Lane Instagram, where we talk a little bit of everything, really, just how to deal with life a little bit more, but from a health and fitness perspective more than anything else. I'm never talking outside of my remit. I'm not a therapist. I'm not qualified in that in the slightest. But I talk from my own experience, because I think all these things are linked. And the more positive patterns you can create in your life, the easier everything gets to deal with. Fat Loss Fast Lane on the old Instagram. That's the best. That's the best place. And if you're struggling a little bit, as some people have done, DMs are always open.
Yeah.
Always open. Only ones I don't reply to are ones that are trying to sell me something. As long as you don't do that, we'll get on fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, on that note, is right. If you want a chance, if you are trying to sell me something, right, and you want a best chance of me replying to you, don't like 50 posts in a row. Like, I know what's coming. Like, I'm counting down to the DM.
It's so predictable.
I don't know who's teaching this stuff, but it's so transparent. Anyway,
maybe we need to be less judgmental. These could be pitch addicts, DM addicts.
Maybe they're struggling. Maybe this is their cry for help, and I'm ignoring them because all they know how to say is, I want to try and add 1,500 followers to your page in the next 10 days. Maybe that's their cry for help because they don't want to admit they're struggling. I don't know, but maybe let's not go down that wormhole, because I'll stop replying to all these guys. But if you're a normal person, not a bot, and want to reach out, and I'm also very happy to chat, right? At Kingsley Dutton on Instagram, KINGSLEY DUTTON on Instagram, or Simon Kingsley Dutton on YouTube, where you'll find this and every other podcast we've done. We're 172 episodes as of next Mondays, with a bunch more to come. And it's gaining some momentum, you'll be happy to hear as well, from putting the audio ones up too. So jump in now as it's growing. more people that follow this, subscribe to this, comment on this, get the algorithm to like this show, because I'm told tons and tons of times how good it is, right? If you're one of these people, help us out. Subscribe, share, because the bigger the show gets, I sound like Stephen Bartlett. Bigger show get, bigger the guests get. All right, fellas. Bye, Huel. But he's right, and the same thing here. So, guys, pleasure as always, Rob. Catch you soon.